Welcome to Spill the Tea. Today we're talking to contemporary romance author Savannah Carlisle. So welcome to Spill the Tea, and today we're talking to Savannah Carlisle, who's is a pen name, and we'll talk about that. So your real name is Christy. Thank you for coming in, Christy. We appreciate you talking about your books. And you write a second chance, kind of a summer story, which is about a library. And I just love your blurb on here, especially the last line where they couldn't be more opposite except for one thing. Unbeknownst to both of them, they've been swapping anonymous notes in the little free library. I think that's just a great tag.
I was always a big fan of the movie You Got Mail. Now, I know a lot of people don't love the movie because they don't love what he ends up doing to her business. And so that does not happen in my book. Just to tell people, like, if you think it's going to be exactly like You Got Mail, it's not. But I loved that sort of concept of falling in love with someone, in that case online, and in mine through these anonymous notes in a little free library, with someone that you don't get along with in real life. I love enemies to lovers. It's my favorite read. It's my favorite to write because the banter is so much fun to write. And so I got this idea about them falling in love by leaving books for each other in a little free library, because I love little free libraries, and just sort of had that idea that's where something could be served.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about the characters?
Yeah, so when I came up with the little free library idea first, and I didn't really know who the people were going to be, and that's a little different than I think most stories. All the other stories I've written, I've had the character, but sort of the device was there first, and it was like, okay, why don't they like each other? And I live in a town. I live on Amelia Island in Florida, and Heron Isle in the book takes a lot of inspiration from Amelia Island where I live, and so I thought about why people here might not get along. And there are a lot of debates here about develop more of our island versus preserving more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to thinking, okay, this is perfect. They can be fighting over the development of the island because we're embroiled in a lot of that here. And in fact, we have some things going on our front. And so I thought, perfect. She's going to own a business downtown, and they're going to be looking to redevelop the waterfront, and he's going to be the developer. And that actually changed, and he's not the developer anymore. I ended up putting him in a different role, coming in to consult with the city because I wanted him to be there just a short time. One of the things I learned as I was starting to write books in terms of character development was this idea that the characters needed to have an arc, and they needed to have maybe a false belief. And her false belief is that everyone leaves. She's had this situation where her mother left when she was young, her fiance has left her to move to a bigger city. So I wanted her to have this false belief that ever leaves. And so I wanted him to only be there for a short time as a
Mm-hmm.
consultant, and then it just kind of go from there.
Awesome. And so is this your first foray into fiction writing, or have you written other fiction books?
So this is the third book that I completed and wrote. The first book will never see the light of day. It's so bad. So this was the third. But actually now the second one that I wrote, I'll have news about it soon. It's going to be coming out as well. So this is the third that I wrote, but the first published fiction.
Awesome. So is this going to be a series of books, or is it a
Not
standalone?
Yeah, not this one. I realize now that I didn't really set up secondary characters in this book in a way that really lent itself to there being more books in this sort of universe. I mean, I have a little bit of an idea of a character that's in there that I could maybe take somewhere, but my second book that I wrote, which will be my second book to come out, I very much set it up to have at least three books. Like when I was writing it, I had these other character lines I was developing in the background, and I knew those people could hold their own books down in the future. So I'm
Mhm.
really hoping that that one ends up becoming a series.
Oh, nice. And for this one, I have to say I really like your cover. The soft beach theme, the colors of it, the library itself. It's very, very cute, and I think it's right on target.
It was the first cover concept they sent me, and even though this is my first fiction, I have written nonfiction previously, so I have already dealt with publishers in the past, and I did not get the cover I wanted. my last nonfiction book, so I was like prepared to go to war for this book. But this was the first concept they said, and actually the only thing I changed with the initial concept, the woman was a brunette, and in the book she's blonde. So I just wrote back and I said, I love this cover, it's perfect, but can she be blonde? Because she's blonde in the book. So they changed her hair, and that is the only thing we changed. So I loved it the minute I saw it.
So that means that you're traditionally published, right?
I am for this. And, considered doing this a number of different ways because by the time I was ready to publish this book, I parted ways with my agent. And this book never went out on submission with my agent. And so I was querying agents for this book. And at the same time, I submitted to just one small press where I had some knowledge of them and sort of knew the woman that owned it already. And I decided to go ahead and send it to her at the same time I was sending it to agents. And I ended up getting an offer from her and also got agent offers at the same time, but chose to pass on the agents at that time and sign this small press deal for this book. I now in the interim have gotten an agent for another book that I'm writing, but this one I did unagented with the small press.
So for those of us who publish independently, we don't go the agent route. Can you tell us a little bit about it? So, educate us a little bit.
Oh, it is an interesting journey. So I first started querying agents in 2010, 2011 for nonfiction. And I did end up getting an agent for my nonfiction. I actually had multiple offers that time. And so I had sort of an easy querying experience and thought that that is how querying would always go for me. Spoiler alert, it was not. Um, my experience in nonfiction has been much, much easier to query and to get an agent for. In fact, the agent that I just signed with, I signed based on a nonfiction book proposal, but then she said she would also represent me for fiction. And so I sort of got in that way because when I queried for fiction, it was much harder to get the attention of agents and takes much longer to get replies from them. So
Mhm.
when I was querying fiction, let's see, that would have been into 2022, beginning of 2023. It would take weeks or months to hear back from an agent that they wanted to see your full manuscript. And
Wow.
then it would take weeks or months to hear back on the full manuscript. And I ended up, I got an offer eventually during that process, but it was from an agent who, once I had a phone call with the agent, didn't feel like the right fit to me. But I used that to go to other agents and say, hey, I have an offer on the table. And that sort of prompts them to read your manuscript faster. And I had about 12, I think, who had my full manuscript at the time. But
Mhm.
when they found out that I had my small press offer, I got down to there were only two who were willing to sign me with the small press offer because the others would rather take it out to a bigger publisher. Small presses tend not to give in advance, and I did
Yeah.
not get an advance from my publisher. And so there's nothing for the agent there. They're not going to make money until, like years down the road when you start getting royalties on your book. And so I only had two that were willing to represent me with the small press. And I ended up actually passing on both of them. And instead, I hired an attorney who was also an agent. She just happened to be someone that I knew. And I had her review the contract for me with the small press. I'm actually an attorney. And I know enough to know that it's not smart to be your own attorney and that it's not my area of the law. So I did hire an agent who's an attorney that I just paid a flat fee to look at a contract and negotiate it for me, and signed with the small press on my own. And then when I was going back out for nonfiction, actually just a few months ago, nonfiction is a little more difficult to get a book deal without an agent. So, at least in the romance genre, I found probably 10 publishers that would take unagented submissions for romance. But
Mhm.
for nonfiction, it's really only academic publishers that will take nonfiction submissions. There's a couple of others, but it's a much smaller pool of publishers that you can go to on your own. So I knew I needed an agent for that book. And also it's a book I think can sell to Big Five. In fact, we're going out on submission like right now. So we'll see how that goes. But that's why I ultimately decided to get an agent again, is because I need it more in the nonfiction space.
And is that also why you chose to have the pen name to kind of differentiate your nonfiction versus fiction?
Yes. So I did have an agent for about 10 years for my nonfiction, and she took my first novel out on submission in 2020, unfortunately, like 2 weeks before the world shut down. It's terrible timing to go out on submission. We just didn't know that. And that book kind of died on submission, although it has been revived. I'm going to have news on it soon, but it sort of died on submission in 2020. Ultimately, she and I decided to part ways because while she was a good fit for my nonfiction over the past 10 years, she was not necessarily the best fit for my romance going forward. And so we decided to part ways. And I was very happy with her and with what we sold with my nonfiction, but I'm also very excited to move forward with my new agent because I think we have a different dynamic and I think we're on a different page about my romance writing. But that previous agent, to go back to your question, was like Amazon won't and booksellers won't understand that you're writing sports nonfiction because I'm a sports business reporter in my day job. So she said they won't understand you're writing sports nonfiction over here and romance over here, totally different audiences.
Yeah.
And so she really encouraged me to find a pen name. And I did that back in 2020, which now in 2024, I'm very grateful I did that long ago and started building my social channels and my email list, even though I didn't have a book yet.
So how important would you say it is to build those channels and that communication with people early, even though your book isn't out?
Yeah, by the time my book came out, my email list was at about 500, which is not enormous, but like when you're starting a brand new pen name, that didn't seem bad to me. And then with a couple of thousand followers on Instagram. And so I did have an audience who sort of knew who I was and had heard me talk about this book all through the editing process. So I did feel like I had an audience that was sort of ready for this book. I would have loved for it to be even bigger, but it was better than like if I had started those 2 weeks before the book came out. At least I had something. And what I've been doing the last 4 years, in addition to talking about my writing process and editing and the process of trying to get an agent and getting the small press deal, is I've done a lot of book reviews in my genre. So I
Mhm.
write contemporary romance, and I've stuck most of my reviews with contemporary romance, rom-coms, women's fiction, and then I love thrillers. So like I can't resist but like review a few thrillers, even though it has nothing to do with what I'm writing. But the other thing that, and this, I didn't plan it this way, but now like looking back, hindsight's 2020. One of the things I did with those book reviews was, when it was a good review, I would tag the author on social media, and I developed a relationship with some authors in the romance and women's fiction space. And so when it came time to try to get blurbs for my book, and my publisher was like, "Are authors, I actually had people I could go to. And I got some amazing blurbs from authors who I love and that I've looked up to for a very long time. And they were willing to do it because I've built this relationship over the past 4 years where I reviewed their books and I had all this excitement for their books and I wasn't asking for anything. And
Mhm.
so now when the time came and I needed to ask for a favor, so many of them were willing to do that for me and to put it in their newsletters and to share in their Facebook groups. And that has made a huge difference for me.
I think building those networks is one of the main marketing tools that we actually have that we don't never think of, but it definitely, definitely helps.
And
Absolutely.
I feel like you can't wait till you have a book out. Like then you want something, then you're asking somebody for something, and then it feels very one-sided. Whereas I had built these relationships over years where I helped share their book when I wasn't asking for anything in return. And at the time, I was just doing it because I love to read and I loved these authors, and my passion and my excitement was totally genuine, and it wasn't part of some like grand master plan. But now that I've done it, I would definitely advise other authors to do it because it did give me sort of an extension of my own network by the time my book came out.
And with your pen name, Savannah Carlisle, how did you choose that particular name? Is there significance
Okay,
behind it?
well, I did know I wanted the first name to be Savannah. I live about 2 hours south of Savannah, and I've been going my whole life. I love the city of Savannah, and I don't have kids, and I am not planning to, but I'd always sort of thought Savannah was a pretty girl's name. And so when it came time to choose a name, I thought Savannah, that I want Savannah to be the first name. The last name was much more difficult. I cannot tell you how many last names my agent and I went through. And it now I sort of have a strategy I can give to other people, which is make sure the name you choose that you're going to be able to get the URL for it and that you're going to be able to get the social media channels that you want. Because a lot of the names I tried, I wasn't going to be able to get those, or I was going to, have to alter it and add something to it. And I didn't want to get confused with another author, or like one of the names I picked when I Googled it. You should do this too. Google the name so you can see
Yes.
what's going to come up. The the person had just committed a string of homicides. So
Oh,
it's like it's
not
maybe
that
not the
one.
name I want to borrow actually. And so
It
my
might work
agent,
if you're like a thriller writer, maybe,
yes,
but
true. Maybe
not
not for romance.
necessarily for romance.
And so my agent said for my last name, she really wanted me to stick towards the front of the alphabet because physical bookstores
Hmm.
do still shelve alphabetically.
Absolutely.
And she used to work in a bookstore. And so her preference was really to keep it towards the front of the alphabet. I wanted it to be something that like was pretty easy to spell. So if people heard me on a podcast and they Googled it, they would find me. And so it did take a lot of names before I landed on one. And there is a real Savannah Carlisle who has popped up that when I was choosing this name, did not come up in Google search results. And now I feel bad that I've stolen her name and she's not going to be able to get the URL. But she's a college softball player. And I was a softball player growing up. So I sort of love that we have that connection. But I kind of feel bad because now I've swiped her URL and her social handles. So apologies to the real Savannah Carlisle.
Oh, that's funny. And that's the thing too. It is a lot of fun choosing like a pen name, things like that. I went with my real name because nobody else has it, so it
Yeah.
was very easy for me. But yeah, if I would have thought about it at the time, it'd be fun to choose a different name. Absolutely, because you can be whoever you want.
Well, here's the hard part that I learned. And I had to choose a different one because I already had the nonfiction books. Otherwise, I would have gladly put it under my real name. About a week before my books arrived, it occurred to me I was going to have to learn how to sign a different name. It is so hard to train your brain to sign a different name. And especially like if somebody's standing there and I'm talking to them, your hand just wants to sign your signature. Like you've done it
Hmm.
so many times over. I'm in my 40s. I've signed my name so many times. And when I got married, I didn't change my last name in part because I did already have books under my maiden name. So I've never changed my last name. My signature has been the same since I was a teenager. So learning how to sign a new name has been a challenging thing for my brain. I have to concentrate so hard when I do it.
That's funny. Um, so in I was gonna say in May, but we are in May. This month, you told me that you are getting a BookBub deal. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. All the credit goes to my publisher for this. You hear a lot of things about small presses, both good and bad. And I think if people want to look at going the small press route, you really have to do your homework. You should talk to authors that have already published and find out what kind of experience they've had. And then for me, a big thing was the covers. And I really think when I was looking at small publishers that I could maybe submit to on my own without an agent, I would go on their website and I would look through their covers, and frankly, some of them got crossed off the list pretty fast because I just
Mm,
did not like their covers. They didn't look like sort of the quality that I was looking for. And so that was actually how I weeded out some of the small publishers. But I knew my publisher had these beautiful covers that I loved, and I'd been able to talk to some of the authors and knew that that was going to go well. But I also talked to the authors about marketing and promotion because I used to own a PR agency that did nonfiction book launches. And because I've been through nonfiction launches myself, I like the marketing side. Like I'm one of the rare authors who actually enjoys the marketing part of being an author. I hate editing, but I love marketing.
I second the
And we
editing.
all have our thing. And so I wanted to know that they were going to be, doing some things for me, but also they were going to give me the freedom to do some of the crazy things I maybe wanted to do. And that partnership has worked really well. Those were conversations I had before I signed the contract, and they have been wonderful. They're doing a Goodreads giveaway. They're doing this BookBub promotion. They're running Amazon ads. Like they're investing a lot in me as a debut author. And I know that that is not the case at every small publisher. So I am very thankful for them. And I'm excited for the BookBub promotion because I had to set up my profile. I had to wait for the book to be out so I could set up my profile. And then I sat there with 0 followers. I think I still only have a few. So I'm just hoping to get in front of more people so that they know I exist.
Hmm. And that is half the battle, getting out in front of people so that they know you exist because the readers are out there. It's just to find them, right?
Exactly. And it's such a crowded marketplace in a good way. Like I have so many books I want to read right now, and it's great that you're not sitting around like, gosh, I hope a new book that's good comes out soon. No, there's so many good books out there. But then as an author, how do you stand out in that crowd? And it's tough. I'm still trying to figure it out.
So do you have any advice for other new authors in the fiction world?
Okay, so one of the best things I think I did, I don't know if you do this as an author, but somebody has suggested to me to use a Genius link for a number of reasons. And I know there's like different universal book links, but I used the one that's called Genius Link, and I've loved it so far. It is paid, but super cheap. I can't remember. I think it's less than $10 a month, up to 1,000 clicks, and then after that, it's 250 per thousand or something like that. But pretty economical, and it gives you so much data. So first of all, it takes people to the right Amazon store. So if somebody in the UK is looking at my book, it's going to take them to the UK version of Amazon versus if I just shared my US Amazon link because I live in the US and that's the link I have. So it'll take them to the right store. I can also set up multiple stores. So if you're wide and you're selling at Barnes and Noble and other places, you can set all that up as well. If you're an Amazon affiliate, you can actually connect your Amazon affiliate and it does the proper disclosure for you on certain products that they have. But the main reason I like it is that you can add all these tracking codes to it. So you have your Genius link, and then you can add a question mark, the word track, and an equal sign. And then you can add anything you want after that. And so I had a number of promotions lined up. Like, I don't know if anybody follows the Pie Lady on Instagram, but I knew that the Pie Lady was going to do my book cover, which was incredible. It was so cool. I couldn't wait to see what she did. And she did such an amazing job. But like, I gave her a link that had a tracking code on the end that said Pie Lady. Another author I love, Annie Rains, was going to put it in her Facebook group and also in her newsletter. I gave her own link. I had all these different tracking codes, even for my own channels, for my newsletter, for Facebook, like my personal Facebook versus my Savannah Carlisle Facebook. I have so many tracking codes. And that shows me what's actually working. And it's
Hmm.
interesting because it's not necessarily the things you think it would be. Like I loved my promo with the Pie Lady, and she did an amazing job. But Annie Rains putting it on her Facebook group blew Pie Lady out of the water. Now I'm thankful for both of them, and I'm glad to have both. I need both. But if you had asked me which one was going to do better, Pie Lady has over 100,000 followers on Instagram. I think Annie Rains has a little less than 1,000 in her Facebook group. And I got more clicks from Annie in my first week than I did from the Pie Lady, which is not, I don't want to say anything negative about the Pie Lady. It's not that, but
Well,
like
it's not her, but
data is
it's her audience, whether they're interested or not, right?
important. And I think it's just so important to have those analytics, especially if you start down the road doing paid promotions. Like I ran one paid promotion on TikTok because I don't have a very big following on TikTok and I just wanted to see how it would do. And so I ran this TikTok promotion, and TikTok will tell you how many clicks you're getting too. But I just wanted all my data in that one dashboard so that I don't have to go to 10 different apps and check analytics. I can just go to Genius Link and I can see the list of all of the tags and how
Oh,
well
that's
they've
nice.
done. And the data is so important, especially if you're making decisions about where to invest your money, but also your time.
Hmm. I like that it's all in one place because yeah, because otherwise you're always transcripting data over into your own sheet and that's time consuming.
Like I use ConvertKit for my email newsletter and it'll tell me how many people clicked on my link, but like then I'd have to go to Facebook and then to TikTok and then, all these different places. And especially when someone else is doing it for you and has offered to put it in their newsletter or in their Facebook group, you have no way of tracking that unless they feed the stats back to you. And
Mm.
so I've asked everybody, is it okay if I give you a tracking link? They've all said yes. And that data has been so important. And I only saw that advice maybe a week before my book came out. And I'm so thankful that I think I just saw it on Twitter somewhere, or X, whatever we're calling it now. And I'm so glad I saw it in time to do it because it's helping me make smarter decisions going forward.
Absolutely. That's a good tip. And for your book, are you wide or are you just in Amazon Kindle?
So it's interesting. My publisher does Amazon first, and I'm told that that's because the royalties are more favorable in Amazon. So they do Amazon first, but they do distribute through Ingram. It has been submitted to Ingram as the time that we're recording this. It hasn't cleared Ingram yet, and so my audiobook is on Barnes and Noble and a million other places, but my paperback and my ebook are not yet. And so right now I'm in Kindle Unlimited with the ebook, but some things will shift over the next few months as as Ingram clears it and it gets into distributors. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like because right now I only have Amazon data.
Well, that's kind of neat though, because this way you get a chance to see what it's like in both worlds, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's
And I
another
think the
chance at
publisher
learning.
did a lot of like trial and error to figure this publisher has only been around for about 4 years. And
Mhm.
so I think they've done a lot of sort of trial and error. And part of the reason I wanted to work with this publisher is it's owned by an author. So she, understands the author side of it.
Mhm.
And she was published with Bookatcher when they first opened and was, I think, their second author. And then they grew and they got acquired by Hachette. And now they're a much bigger publisher. But she was with them from the very beginning and learned a lot watching them grow. And so I love that she has that author perspective, and really understands what it's like to be on this side of things. But she's like me, she geeks out over marketing. And so I think she's done a lot of trial and error with the books that have come before mine. And I think she really uses her own books as a guinea pig most of the time. And
Mhm.
so she was like, okay, we're going to do this thing and this thing and this thing. And this is why this works. And this is why this works. And here's where we find our readers. And, she's largely been right about all those things. Honestly, the only thing that's gone a little bit different for mine is I've had more paperback sales than she expected. And I think it's because it's got the beach on the cover
Yeah.
and it's set on an island. It's a beach read. Mostly when I'm out on my beach, I see people sitting there reading paperbacks. So I think
Mhm.
people want to be able to throw that in their beach bag.
A nice little vacation book for the vacation.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. So your next book, when is it coming out for your series of three?
It hasn't been announced yet, but I think I can say that it's coming out next year and that there'll be more details about who it's publishing with and the title and all that coming really soon, I think.
Awesome. So, when it does happen, let us know because we would love to have you on again to chit chat about it.
Thank
And
you.
we will also put the link for this particular book in the description and also to your website so people can find you. And if you send me that BookBub link, I will also put it in there so people can click on it as well and maybe, check you out. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was wonderful speaking to you today.
Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone for checking out this episode. And I hope you follow me on BookBub and in all the other places. I have all kinds of fun news coming up and lots of fun giveaways in addition to BookBub. I have got like so much swag. I'm sitting in my office. My office is full of book swag, and I'm going
We
to start
love the
doing some
swag.
giveaways for that.
If
I will
if
send
you
you some swag too.
I was gonna say if you want, you can show us a couple pieces of swag before we go.
Oh, well, let me show. Okay, the most fun thing, a friend of mine who's a publicist created this card for me. So the people in the book are leaving notes on index cards inside the books that they're leaving for each other. And so she made up this card and it says to reader, and I won't read the whole thing, but it sort of talks a little bit about the book and why you would
Mhm.
enjoy it. And then it says from Island Girl, which is the moniker that the female main character is using in the book. And then she left some room on the back where I can sign it. So I've been sticking this card inside books and then leaving books in little free libraries for people
Well,
to
that's
find. And so
cool.
they find this little note from Island Girl when they open the book. And I cleaned up all the rest of my mess so that you wouldn't see it all over my desk as we were recording this. But I've got some cute stickers. There are cats who live in the bookstore in the book. The main character owns a bookstore in addition to maintaining the little free library. And so there's a really cute sticker that's got a stack of books and it's got one of the cats climbing up the books because I own that cat. My cat could never live in a bookstore. All the books would be in the floor in the morning. So I've got some fun stickers and bookmarks and that kind of stuff. So I will send you a little swag
Well,
pack.
awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, thank you again for coming on, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes, thanks for having me.